You're about to learn a secret technique that has been hidden for over 3,000 years. It was used by the initiates of Thoth to activate true inner vision, the one that sees what the eyes can't show. And the most surprising part? Your body has already started using this technique, without you realizing it. You know that feeling that something's wrong, but no one else notices? Or that sudden chill that comes out of nowhere, like someone called out to you from within? These aren't symptoms, they're signs. Signs that your perception has already started to pierce the veil. And by the end of this video, you'll master the vibrational code that activates this portal. But first, you need to understand why you already live between two worlds, and what happens when you finally learn to see both at the same time. If you separate the spirit from the body and learn to see with the eyes of the soul, then the hidden truth behind all forms will be revealed to you. You've always lived between two worlds. This isn't a metaphor or fantasy. It's reality, a reality as old as time itself. But no one told you, no one taught you how to notice it. Since the earliest steps of civilization, the great sages knew about the existence of these two overlapping layers at every moment: the physical, concrete, visible world, and the subtle, energetic, vibrational world. The first one is obvious, the second, silent. But it's always there. Most people believe that only what can be touched, measured, or proven exists. But the ancients knew that was only part of the whole. They called the invisible the spiritual world, the ether, the astral plane, the akasha. In ancient India, they spoke of the material plane and the causal plane. The Egyptians spoke of the visible world and the duat. The Greeks called them the sensible and the intelligible, and the masters of the Hermetic tradition understood this clearly. Everything physical is just the temporary manifestation of something much deeper. The body feels, but the field around the body already knew. The rational mind reacts, but the subtle awareness had already sensed it. You think you're deciding now, but on deeper levels, your vibration had already begun to move the gears of reality long ago. This isn't magic. This is ancient science. It's refined perception. And more than that, it's part of your nature. Since you were born, you've had access to both worlds. But your education, your environment, your culture, all of it was designed to disconnect you from one of them. You learned to trust only in what your eyes see, in numbers, in logic. You learned that seeing is believing. But no one ever taught you that there are things you can only see when you feel. When you become silent. When you observe with something beyond ordinary vision. And that's why you stopped believing in yourself. That feeling that came out of nowhere, that strange dream that later came true, that impression that something was off in the air. It was all labeled as just your imagination. But it wasn't. It was your perception crossing the boundary between worlds. It was your consciousness trying to remind you that there is more, much more, than what your physical eyes can capture. Have you ever noticed how, in certain moments, time seems to stretch? Like a tiny fraction of a second had a different weight, like the environment around you slowed down. It's in those moments that the second world reveals itself. It doesn't arrive with a bang. It slips in. It breathes in the pause between thoughts. It lives in the spaces between lines of reality. And you've been there many times, even without knowing it. The ancient masters said the visible world is like the shadow of something greater. Like Plato described, most people live staring at a wall, seeing only shadows, and believing that's all there is. But those who dare to turn their face discover a source of light that was always there, hidden by habit, by hurry, by distraction. And when you see that light for the first time, your life is never the same. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to study for years or follow strict rules. You just need to start remembering, because deep down, something in you already knows. And that's why you feel what you feel. That's why certain places give you chills. That's why, even without proof, you know there's something more. You are between two worlds. You always have been. But only now have you begun to notice. And this is where everything changes. Because those who discovered how to see both worlds at the same time left behind a method, and it was hidden until now. The forbidden knowledge that Thoth passed on in secret. This method wasn't created recently. It's ancient, far older than any organized religion, any modern science, any popular spiritual doctrine. It was preserved by one of the most mysterious names in history, Thoth, also known as Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great. Thoth was considered the master of cycles, the lord of time, of the creative word, and of access between worlds. But most importantly, he was one of the first to record what we now call the path to inner vision. But why does no one talk about this? Why was this knowledge hidden for so long? Because it wasn't safe in the wrong hands. This technique wasn't just another self-awareness practice. It literally opened the doors of perception. It expanded the senses. It shattered the illusion of matter as the only reality. And in doing so, it revealed what was behind the veil: patterns, frequencies, hidden intentions. Once activated, this vision allowed you to see not just the world, but the forces that move it. It wasn't something that could be taught to the masses, because not everyone is ready to see what's truly here. That's why Thoth didn't leave it in plain texts. He used codes, symbolic language, metaphors, phrases that, at first glance, seemed like poetry or mysticism, but carried vibrational instructions for those who were ready. He didn't speak to the rational mind. He spoke to the consciousness behind the mind. Only the initiates could decode it. And this initiation didn't happen in grand temples, but in the silence of being, in the encounter with oneself. For millennia, this knowledge was passed like this, from master to disciple, in secret, one by one. There were no lectures, no public books, only vibrational transmission between two aligned consciousnesses. And why so much care? Because those who weren't prepared for this vision could go mad from what they saw. Because seeing beyond the illusion requires spiritual maturity. The truth can set you free, but it can also confuse if it comes at the wrong time. Thoth knew this, and so did the initiates. They weren't different from you. They were just ready to cross the veil. And for that, they needed more than curiosity. They needed presence, surrender, inner discipline. Because this vision can't be bought. It's not inherited. It's earned through frequency, alignment, and true intention. Over time, this knowledge dissolved in the sands of history. Some parts were lost. Others were hidden on purpose. And others still live in ancient texts, ignored by those who read with their eyes, but not with their hearts. The Emerald Tablet, for example, is one of those clues, an encrypted summary of the path of inner transmutation. Every line contains multiple levels of understanding, but without the key, it all just seems like an old riddle. But that key isn't out there. It never was. It's inside. And that's what makes this technique so powerful. Because it doesn't depend on external tools, or gurus, or temples. It depends only on you, on your willingness to look, to feel, to activate what's already there, but asleep. You've carried this ability since you were born. It's not a special gift reserved for a few. It's part of the structure of your consciousness, an internal instrument that went silent from lack of use. But now, with everything you've started to perceive, it's about to awaken. And now that you've made it this far, you're ready to discover the truth about the forgotten function you already use every day, without knowing. And the most impressive part is that you access this vision every day in the moment you least expect, while you sleep. Yes, while your body rests, something inside you moves beyond the physical world. You dream, and dreaming is seeing without the eyes. Have you ever really thought about that? How is it possible that, with your eyes closed and no external stimuli, you can visualize entire scenes, colors, faces, emotions, places? Where do those images come from? They're not projections of the physical world. They're internal manifestations, reflections of another layer of consciousness that remains active while the logical mind is silent. And that layer is exactly where your inner vision lives. Modern science calls this vivid imagination, but there are already serious studies showing that the human brain processes, while dreaming, a type of visual activity that doesn't depend on light or the retina. These are internal recordings, subtle accesses to content that go beyond the conscious mind. This is the territory where the third eye operates. And no, it's not an esoteric symbol without foundation. It's a functional vibrational structure, an internal lens that works outside the field of the 5 traditional senses. In your early years, you used this vision all the time. Just watch a baby. They stare into the void and smile. They fix their gaze on points adults can't see. Small children talk to presences adults don't notice. And the usual response is, it's just imagination. But what we call imagination in this case is subtle perception. The same perception you lost access to when you learned to rationalize everything. When you started depending only on what was tangible, predictable, and socially acceptable. But that vision never left you. It just went quiet, waiting for the moment you'd be ready to activate it again. And maybe that moment has come now. Because if you've made it this far, it's because something in you has started to feel there is much more than what's in front of your eyes. The 3 pillars that awaken inner vision, and what happens when you bring them together. In the center of the forehead, a place that many ancient spiritual traditions revered as the seat of subtle perception. And now you're going to do something simple, yet extremely powerful. Bring your attention there. No effort, no expectation, just full awareness. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe slowly. Feel the air entering through your nostrils, gently flowing down into your lungs, filling your body like a calm breeze. Exhale slowly. Do it once more. And now, bring your attention to the center of your forehead. Don't force anything, just feel. Imagine your breath touching this point each time it enters and exits. It's as if the air is gently cleansing this inner space. You might start to feel a slight tingling, a gentle pressure, a warmth that slowly arises. Some people feel like a drop of light is pulsing there. Others describe it as a field vibrating outward, like a small sun starting to light up inside their own head. But don't worry if you don't feel anything right now. What matters is that your attention is there. And where attention goes, energy flows. This point between the eyebrows is a real energy center, not visible to the physical eye, but clearly perceived by those who begin to connect with it. The Vedic tradition calls it ajna, the center of inner vision, refined intuition, direct perception. It's in this center that information not coming from conventional senses is processed. When you focus on this point with intention, you're literally turning on the inner light of your house. Science is still taking its first steps in this area, but there are already studies showing neurological changes when experienced meditators concentrate on this point. Brain activity changes. Brain waves reorganize. The body enters states of deep coherence. But the most important part isn't in the data, it's in the direct experience. And that's what is happening to you now. If you keep your attention gently on the spot between your eyebrows, something begins to shift inside. You don't need to imagine anything. Just observe. This point acts like an antenna. It not only receives information, it also transmits. It's like a silent radar that senses what lies beneath the surface. Inner sounds, colors that don't come from outside light, sensations that arise out of nowhere and slowly begin to make sense. And maybe right now, something is moving inside you. Not like an idea, but like a memory, as if a forgotten part were coming back to life. This point between your eyebrows is like a door, an energetic key. When you look at it from within, you're telling your body, I'm ready to see, not with my eyes, but with what's behind them. Thousands of people report that after a few simple breathing practices and focus on this point, they start to perceive patterns, sensations, subtle shifts in how they think and feel. Choices become more intuitive. Decisions gain clarity. Words come with more strength. As if an inner compass is finally being reconnected. You're reactivating a center that was never shut off, just asleep. And by bringing your attention back to it, you've already begun the process of vibrational reactivation. Simply focusing on this point begins to reorganize your perception. It's like you're cleaning a lens that's been dusty for years, and now, little by little, it starts to reveal what's always been there, but you couldn't see. This is the sign that the energy center is responding. And when you align the three main elements, this vision opens like a portal. It's not a physical movement or a complex practice. It's a tuning, a frequency that only activates when three fundamental elements vibrate in harmony. They're like the three sides of a bridge. Without any one of them, the crossing can't hold. But when they're together, they open the path to something few dare to experience, the conscious activation of inner vision. The first is conscious silence. But not just any silence, not the one that happens when you turn off the TV or close the door. That's only the silence of the mouth, of the environment. What we're talking about here is the silence between your own thoughts. That invisible gap between one idea and another, a tiny space that, when observed, starts to grow. And in that space, there is power. Because true silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of perception. It's the point where you stop reacting to the world and start feeling the essence of things as they are. The ancients said silence is the language of the spirit. And when you learn to listen in this frequency, inner vision begins to emerge on its own as a natural reflection. The second pillar is sacred breathing. You breathe all the time. But what would it be like to breathe with intention, with presence, with full awareness? The sages discovered that certain breathing patterns completely alter the body's energy field. They don't just oxygenate the brain. They also reorganize brain waves, calm the nervous system, and release what was blocked. When you breathe consciously, your mind aligns with your body. Rush disappears. Anxiety slows down. And your attention becomes clear, stable, clean. In that state, energy begins to flow to the right places, including the center of the forehead, the channel of inner vision. Breath is the portal between the visible and the invisible, and learning to cross it is what changes everything. The third pillar is the most challenging in modern life: directed attention. In a world where everything competes for your attention, learning to keep focus on a single point is almost a forgotten art. But it's this art that awakens what's been asleep. Attention is like a laser beam. If it's scattered, it has no power. But if it's focused, it can cut through any barrier. When you learn to direct your attention inward, especially to the energy point between the eyebrows, your perception shifts to a new level. You leave the surface of the mind and dive into the vibrational field of consciousness. Inner vision doesn't open for the curious. It opens for the focused, for those who hold their gaze even when nothing seems to be happening. These three pillars, silence, breath, and attention, work like synchronized gears. Alone, they're already powerful, but together, they create a specific vibrational code that activates the field of perception that's been dormant. It's like turning on a forgotten machine. The ancients knew this. That's why it wasn't enough just to meditate, or only to breathe, or just to focus. It had to be all three, done at the same time, in a rhythm, a sequence, with true intention. And that's where the secret comes in, because there's only one way to combine them correctly, and it was encoded in an ancient secret ritual with 7 breathing steps. You're about to learn it now. The ritual of 7 breaths. The method to open the portal of hidden perception. It's no coincidence that there are 7. The number 7 carries an archetypal pattern present in almost all sacred traditions. 7 colors, 7 notes, 7 chakras, 7 heavens. But here, the 7 breaths represent 7 doors that open one by one until the 8th, the one not seen with the eyes, reveals the invisible. So breathe with me, but not like you usually do. Now, each breath will be a call, an activation, a step inward. On the first breath, you will simply inhale slowly, deeply, and visualize a golden light filling your body. Don't worry about seeing it clearly. Just imagine. As you exhale, let the air go as if releasing the weight of the world. This is the entrance door. On the second breath, imagine this light beginning to gather at the center of your forehead. And as you exhale, picture a gentle mist starting to clear around you. Time seems to slow down. The noise of the mind fades. You're crossing the threshold of thought. On the third breath, feel as though the air isn't just entering your lungs, but every cell, as if your entire body is breathing with you. And as you release, you let go of all hidden tension. Something in you begins to expand. It's subtle, but it's there. The fourth breath marks the transition point. Now, the light you inhale no longer stays only in the body. It starts to go beyond your physical limits. You feel a mild warmth in the center of your forehead, maybe a tingling, maybe pressure. Just observe. Don't try to control it. By the fifth, the sensation of time nearly disappears. You are between what was and what is yet to come. A silent space begins to open. Some people report seeing images with closed eyes, colors, symbols, movements. Others feel like they're approaching something, without knowing what. On the sixth breath, you allow yourself to surrender. No forcing, no thinking, just breathing. And in that moment, the whole body seems to enter a suspended state. Air flows in and out, but you're no longer just breathing. You're tuning in. Like an instrument that, after years out of tune, finally returns to its original tone. On the seventh, you remain in silence. Inhale and exhale as if floating. The mind doesn't struggle. The body feels light. Reality seems distant, yet at the same time, more alive. You're on the threshold of the invisible. And if you allow this state to unfold without resistance, the veil begins to dissolve. But if you think this is the peak, get ready. Because what comes next is the most mysterious space of the mind. And you're about to enter it consciously. This space isn't visible under a microscope or a telescope, but it's there, between the two. An imperceptible gap between one thought and another. A crack between what you think and what you are. This place was called by the ancients the blind spot of consciousness. A place where the logical mind cannot enter, where time dissolves, where the usual rules of thought no longer apply. And the most curious part is that you've already been there. Everyone has passed through this point. You know that moment right before you fall asleep, when you're not fully awake but not yet asleep? That's it. This in-between state is the first portal. But it passes quickly, and since most people were never trained to notice it, it simply slips by. But now you're learning to recognize it. And more than that, you're learning to stay in it. In this space, time doesn't behave the same way. Minutes can feel like hours. Ideas arise effortlessly. Sensations that were once muted become sharp. And perception shifts. You stop observing the world from the outside and begin to perceive the world that vibrates within. At this point, inner vision starts to emerge like a new lens. You see what was hidden, not with the physical eyes, but with the conscious field that has always been operating in the background. The dance of mental waves, frequencies that reveal the invisible. What you see, feel, and understand begins to operate on a different pattern, and this is proven. Modern science has already shown that your brain doesn't emit a single frequency. It shifts, it dances, it adapts, and this mental dance defines the quality of your consciousness in that moment. During the normal waking state, you operate in the beta frequency. It's useful for working, making logical decisions, responding to the world. But it's also in this state that the mind tends to be more agitated, critical, anxious. In the alpha state, brain activity slows down. You enter a more creative, intuitive, receptive field. This is the level where artists find inspiration, where ideas are born. And this is exactly where the bridge begins to form between the external world and the subtle one. When you go even deeper and enter the theta frequency, you're navigating between wakefulness and sleep. A space where the logical mind nearly falls silent and the subconscious takes the lead. Small children operate in this frequency naturally. That's why they learn so quickly, through observation, effortlessly. In this state, hidden memories surface, deep insights happen. And more than that, this is where you begin to see what lies beyond. Even lower is the delta frequency, associated with deep sleep, cellular regeneration, and, in advanced practitioners, contact with zones of the collective unconscious. States of deep healing and out-of-body experiences tend to happen in these levels. But this isn't about sleeping. It's about accessing these waves with a conscious, grounded mind. And that's what the previous exercise began to prepare in you. When you enter this internal rhythm, the outer world begins to feel different. Colors appear more vivid, sounds become more subtle, thoughts slow down, and then inner vision begins to take the place of normal perception. It's not that you start seeing fantastic things like in movies. It's that you begin to notice what has always been here, but you never had access to. The vibrational field of people, the intention behind words, the energetic state of a space. All of this begins to become visible, not with your eyes, but with your consciousness. Some call this awakening. Others call it expanded perception. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that once you enter this state, you don't go back to being the same. Your sensitivity increases, your intuition gets stronger, and your connection with the invisible becomes natural. But with this opening, something else changes. You begin to attract what protects this threshold. Because by activating this field, you attract something few are ready to face, the threshold guardians. And you need to know how to move through them. These guardians don't show up as mystical figures or external entities. They emerge from within you. They are deep reflections of your own mind, activated when you begin to move beyond the limits of the known. The first is doubt. Not superficial doubt about techniques or methods, but a deep doubt that touches your identity. You begin to wonder, is this all real? Or am I fooling myself? This is the test of inner faith. Not blind faith, but vibrational faith, the ability to remain present without guarantees. Then comes fear, an ancient fear. The fear of losing control, of letting go, of no longer being who you thought you were. It shows up as resistance, as a sudden urge to stop, to go back to the comfort of routine. But fear here is a guardian asking, are you ready to cross the portal without knowing what's on the other side? And then comes impatience, the desire to see immediate results. The modern mind wants signs, proof, rewards. But inner vision doesn't work that way. It opens like a flower, in its own time. If you try to force it, it closes. This guardian teaches you to wait with presence, not expectation. The last, and perhaps most subtle, is the spiritual ego. When you begin to feel new things, perceive more, have different experiences, the idea might arise that you're special, different from others, superior. This is the poison that shuts the channel before it fully opens, because true inner vision can only be sustained by humility, not pride. It blooms in emptiness, not in the need to be someone. And now that your vision has opened, comes the most important part, how to live with it in the real world. And that's the content of the next video. You're ready. If you felt like this message was meant for you, write in the comments, "My inner vision has awakened." This phrase is not just symbolic. It anchors the vibration that was activated in you. And it may resonate with other souls who are awakening too. And if you'd like to support the channel more directly, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can contribute, so more people receive messages like this. By supporting, you help this message reach those who truly need it. Now, don't leave just yet. A video has been specially selected for you to continue this journey. It's appearing here on the screen. Click on it and I'll meet you there, where I'll show you how to live with this new vision in the real world.